Here, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. The recording has started, just as an FYI. We'll get started in a couple minutes. Ted, Sarah, anything we can do for you at this time?
I think we're good.
I agree.
Ted,
Thank you.
I love your background, Ted. I think I have the same at home.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Pre-COVID, that was just a flag in my office, and since COVID, it's become the background for everything I do. Right.
Great. All right.
Do you have the pets in your office as well, Charles?
I have the what?
The pets, the companion pets. You can have those as part of your background.
I'm waiting for the. I'm in the office, and no, I don't have the pets yet.
This is also in my office.
Oh, so cool. That's a limited edition one. Where did you get it?
I got it a few years ago at one of the conferences that we went to, but cool. Yeah, so it's right here sits right on top of my mantle here.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Good job. I like it. I don't know if you saw from the break, I don't know why I randomly counted. We've given out more than 45,000 of these stickers. So
that's awesome. Well, I think a lot of people agree, so that's good news.
And Charles, I have to tell you, this is my first conference with your group, but I'm just very impressed by the talent here. So thank you.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. Feel free to, well, welcome, I should say, and please come again. Please come again. We like having everyone involved, and yeah, we obviously feel strongly about the topic, as you might imagine. All right. So why don't we get started in about 15 seconds or so? Are you ready, Ted and Sarah?
Ready to go.
Cool.
Let me know when you want me to share my screen so I can get to the presentation. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Welcome, everyone. For the ones that are just joining us, this is the session number 3, the third session of our Activity Strong virtual winter gathering. My name is Charles Zedilren. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Linked Senior. We provide resident engagement platform for the senior living industry. As some of you have caught Ted and I and Sarah talking, we feel strongly about the fact that all people are cool. And before we dive into the topic of today, let me just cover a few housekeeping reminders. So we can earn, you audience member can earn up to 3 NAB, NCAP, NCTRC, and or NCC DPCU credits today. To earn your credits, you need to attend the 4 sessions. So as little as 1, and hopefully a lot of you have got the 3 sessions today. The 2 first ones are amazing, and the third one is going to be amazing as well. To get the CEU, you need to fill in the survey no later than Friday of this week, Friday, December 10th, so that we can process the certificate and again issue up to 3 of these hours of CEUs. Please, as a note, remember that given the high number of attendees, CEUs will be sent out by email next week, the week of December 13th, and no later than Friday of that week, which is December 17th. Just as an FYI, we've improved the workflow, the process there, and there's a simple emails for you to ask any questions you might have, which is simply webinars with an S, webinars@linkedsenior.com. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, so feel free to share it with your teams, feel free to share it with your professionals and even your friends. And also as a reminder, I know that all of us now are pros at Zoom, but I just want to remind us that we have two ways to interact. We have the chat feature, which gets very busy. And if you have something specific you want to ask our speakers today, our panelists, please use the Q&A. That ensures that we see it and the speakers will see that. And also, I know that the chat is a great way for us to talk with other other audience member. If you want to talk with the rest of the audience, please select everyone in the drop-down. Otherwise, by default, it's only the panelists that will see your comment, your input. And last but not least, please remember to have fun, especially this session is geared towards joy and having fun and so on. But I think that overall, we do love the idea and we do promote the idea heavily that we want you all to have fun. And yeah, the last but not least, thank you for what you do every single day. What you do is essential for our elders to find purpose. And myself, Charles, and I'm sure speakers, Sarah and Ted, or other speakers today will agree, what you do by showing up at work is essential for elders to find purpose. And we believe that you are actually the most important function in our senior living industry. Couple comments. Link Senior leads Activity Strong, but does that in partnership with Activity Connection, NAP, and NCAP. And we are also the organization behind Older People Are Cool. With that, I'd love to introduce Ted Fischer, who's the co-founder and CEO of Ageless Innovation, and Sarah Schroeder, who's the Wellness Director of Eaton Senior Living Communities. And today, they will be talking to us about creative opportunities for improving quality of life in senior living. Ted, Sarah, it's yours. Feel free to share your screen, take it away. And again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great, thank you so much. Let me just get to what I need to here. All right, let's see. Are you seeing my screen or no?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. In some ways, it's making me give accessibility here. All right. All right. Okay, let's try it again. This only happens when I need to share my screen. All right.
There we go.
Yeah, I got a new computer, and so it required me to give Zoom permission. Apparently, I haven't shared my screen since I got a new computer. So, Charles, thank you so much for the introduction. And I would just like to continue on the theme that thank you all so much for not only being here, but for everything you do every day. We've had the distinct pleasure of being in this space for a little over 6 or 7 years now. And when I joined Hasbro, I'll tell you a little bit about the backstory because I think it's really important contextually to why we believe that fun and joy and play are so important in this space. But when I joined Hasbro 7 or 8 years ago to lead this new innovation team, I never in a million years could have projected that it would lead me to this place where we ended up in a space where we get to work with older adults and their families every single day. It's been an honor, a privilege, and a joy, as it is an honor, a privilege, and a joy to be with my co-presenter, Sarah, today, who will give you a lot more real-world use case than I will. But, I think giving a little bit of context and sort of how we got here is important to the bigger picture, right? Because it's really this focus on joy and fun and play. And the one thing that I can tell you back in the early Hasbro days that was the foundational insight that led us to launch the Joy for All companion pets was the unequivocal desire that older adults wanted more play in their life. And when we asked that question, I don't think I ever heard a no, or I ever heard I want to stop playing, or I ever heard I want it less. They wanted more joy, more fun, more play. And unfortunately, there aren't enough companies focused on the fun, joyful, playful side of aging. And so we feel very lucky to be able to do that. The other thing that I would say is, this is definitely as well as being creative, which is in the title of the presentation, it's also a really non-traditional intervention, but a non-traditional intervention that's having tremendous impact. And that's a really important part of the story as it relates to loneliness, isolation, dementia, Alzheimer's. If we can add that joy and fun and play in the lives of those most in need, then we're fulfilling our mission every day. So I'll give you a little bit of the backstory, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she'll give some great insight as well. So I start where I always start, which is with our purpose. And our purpose is to reimagine how we positively live and age together by unleashing the power of play. One thing we have come to know, not just believe, but know, is that play isn't just a nice to have, it's actually a basic human need. And society and culture tells us as we get older that we shouldn't play as much, that we're too old to play. We couldn't disagree more. And I think what we've seen over time is that this play is an asset that is not often enough used to overcome some of the difficult situations that arise as we age. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because today, that started out as a nice anecdotal premise for what we've done, that, we knew that play would have a positive impact. I always tell people I'm certainly not medically trained, nor do I have any medical degree, but when people are happy, they feel better. And we've seen that without question. And I think unleashing that power of play is something that we don't think about every day as the way to deal with difficult situations. And what the research has now proven with our product and with others is that the intervention that happens isn't just good for the older adult, but it's also good for the loved ones and the caregivers, the people who care deeply about them, but have to interact with them on a regular basis. And so, we'll talk about a few need states that we've addressed: social isolation, loneliness, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and we'll show you the impact that we've had sort of as we move through this. So this is a little bit of a busy slide, but it kind of an important one. It's a bit of our journey, and I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I will say, as I said earlier, we started this journey and this brand, the Joy for All companion pets. We launched them at Hasbro. I was brought in 2015 to lead a new innovation team with a mandate of thinking about ways to use what Hasbro was good at in new markets and new channels. So not for kids in the toy aisle. They were pretty good at that before I got there. But being part of the world's largest toy company had some significant benefits that I thought would help the health and wellness and sort of, overall well-being of people, right? So the ability to engage and gamify and create meaningful connections. Hasbro was fantastic at those things. And we thought there were other populations that could really benefit if we were able to create something that would help do that. So we, after a bunch of insight and research that we did with older adults, and really the first insight was that there was a toy that was created for the category was 4 to 8 year old girls about 20 some odd years ago. And about 15–20% of the reviews were mom not buying it for their 4 to 8 year old daughter, but buying it for an aging loved one. And the reviews that they were writing were these amazing, effusive reviews that make you cry. And that was really the initial insight that we leaned into. And then we went to the experts. We went to the older adults themselves. And, we brought a bunch of them together in different settings, both inside the Hasbro building, but we travel all over the country. And really, folks, anyone who would let us into their living room, assisted living, memory care, independent living, whatever it was, we would bring out an array of things and see what, people thought was interesting or exciting or fun to play with or an easy get. And this idea of an animatronic form factor, which we think is most effective in the form of familiar pets, was the one that sort of raised to the top. And that was the birth of the Joy for All companion pets. 10 months later, after a lot of work with older adults, We launched the brand. We came out with a cat in 2015. We launched the dog in 2016. We were fortunate enough that we caught the attention of a lot of media who thought it was exciting that a company like Hasbro was focused on older adults for the first time. It was really the first brand in their history specifically for that population. And that sort of led to a bunch of, great partnerships that we moved into that really helped us move into the space where Hasbro was very unfamiliar at the time. So folks like Leading Age and Alzheimer's Association, Meals on Wheels, Advancing States, and others. And so as we got more familiar in those spaces, we started to get more and more ingrained in sort of this entire community, if you will. Luckily, our product was well received, and a bunch of research. The anecdotal evidence of impact over the first year or two was starting to reach clinicians and academics, who then decided this would be really interesting to study to see if this anecdotal evidence of impact really had validation and proof. And I'll go through that in a little more detail after. We ran the brand inside of Hasbro for 3 years. And then mutually decided with Hasbro that the best opportunity for the Joy for All brand was to spin out into its own company so we could focus 100% on older adults and their families. Inside of Hasbro, as you'd imagine, there were a lot of other distractions that kept us from being completely engaged there. We are now global. We have a company in the UK and a company in Australia. And we continue to grow our channels in sort of two important ways. So retail is an obvious place, and then healthcare is the other. So retail, obviously coming out of Hasbro, that's a pretty natural channel. The healthcare was less natural then, but is our fastest growing and most important channel. And in that, we're retail. I'll show you a little footprint, but for us, the reason the dual channel strategy works so well is that we're able to meet older adults where they are. So some are retail buyers and prefer to do to Amazon or CVS or go there. Others are in community-based living and would prefer that is the channel that they have access to our products through there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our incredibly passionate, driven team. And the reason that I talk about it is it's so critical that a number of these folks came with me from Hasbro. And as you see by our pictures, we don't take ourselves all that seriously. We are based on fun and joy and play after all. And so we've assembled this group of folks, some from Hasbro, some from outside of Hasbro, some are global supply chain experts. Every single person on this team is passionate about older adults and their families and creating fun, joyful, playful, meaningful experiences for those that we serve. And we do speak about it in a way that older adults are the population we serve. And that's really important to sort of who we are. For those who have not experienced our products, I thought I'd give a slight demo, but they're feature rich, they're interactive. The whole premise was this give and take relationship, so that you gave something like a pet or a snuggle and you got something back. And that could be a meow or a purr, a rollover. But what we heard from older adults as we were designing the product is that cats never do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. So the pattern of the cat is a completely random play pattern. So it's just so you pet its back or touch a sensor on its back, you're not necessarily going to get the reaction that you hope for, but eventually you probably will, like most cats do. So let me just play this little, for those that haven't seen it, this little demo video. So some of the things that are sort of important to that are, we went for some very tactile interactions, and those tactile interactions have become some of the most important features. So one of the things that we heard from older adults is that when cats purr, they actually vibrate. There's a physical tactile vibration that you can feel. And that was really important to people. And so we created this technology called VibraPurr. So when our cat purrs, it actually vibrates. So if it's sitting in your lap and you're listening to purr, by petting it, then you actually feel the interaction. And so that's been a really important part of it. And then a year later, we came out with the pup. And the pup's a little more predictable, as pups are. And again, they have sounds and sensors that respond to sound and to touch and to light, changes in light. One of the things that the pup has different than the cat is a bark back technology. So you speak to the pup and it kind of barks back to you in a similar length and in little puppy barks. And so it's kind of a conversational piece. We also, we're trying to figure out what we could do in the pup to replicate that tactile interaction of the cat with the vibropur. And so there's a subtle heartbeat in the pup that as it calms down and you're both sort of sitting there resting, it's a heartbeat and it sort of slows as you sit. I'll play this video very briefly. So I think really importantly, is in terms of the design and the features, it's very much designed for older adults by older adults. And every step of the way, we had older adults that were actually involved in the process. We do some, tinkering and tweaking, and then we go back and we get feedback. And, so happy to say that as we launch our next product, which I'll give you a little preview of, it is actually, the inventor is a 93-year-old entrepreneur named Rita Maloney. And Rita, for 90 years of her life, didn't need a walker. And for the last 3 years, when she forgets it, everybody gets upset with her. So she thought it would be great if there was something that sat on her walker to help her have a more engaging, fun, playful relationship, maybe help her remember to grab it as opposed to forget. And so she thought, a little bird that sat on our, the walker. So in Q1 of 2022, we're coming out with the Walker Squawker, which is the Rita Maloney designed bird that'll hopefully be a fun and playful and engaging way for folks to interact with their walker. So more to come on that. But the most exciting part of that story is that we had a 93-year-old inventor who came to us and gave us the great honor and pleasure of helping her bring that idea to life. So couldn't be more excited about that. 2 seconds on this is just, as you can see, so the retail supply chain is really important because we thought affordability and accessibility were critical elements to getting this to those most in need. And so these are just some of our partners where you can find our products in the US. As I said earlier, we expanded globally. And again, we're in a number of retail locations, but also on the healthcare side, we work through distributors in different countries and different regions that are servicing the community-based living world, wherever that may be, both Europe, Australia, Asia, etc. So exciting. So I'm going to spend just a little time here because I think, and most of you, I'm sure, are ultra familiar with these two important need states, but these have been the two critical need states where our product has really been proven to have the most impact. And I think what's important is Charles indicated, sort of, we had a couple of learning objectives, for this session. And, I think these are these stats, and I'm going to read them as opposed to get them wrong. But these statistics are so important, and both of them, in both cases, whether it's Alzheimer's disease and related dementias or in social isolation and loneliness, they've both been exacerbated by the pandemic. And no one knows that better than all of you. As we've served to protect our older adults, we've also certainly made them more isolated and more alone, and potentially more lonely and more separated from not only their families, but their peers, their loved ones. And I think these stats are kind of staggering. And when I go back to the why in terms of what we do every day, I think a lot about how can we amplify impact for those most in need. And when you think about these, you talk about social determinants of health, 5.8 million Americans have ADRD, Alzheimer's, dementia, and related diseases, right? 16 million people provide care for people with Alzheimer's and dementias. Serving 18.6 billion hours and nearly $244 billion of free care in a lot of cases with family members. In 2020, Alzheimer's and other dementias will cost the nation $305 billion. And they're saying by 2050, it'll be $1.1 trillion. So these are not small issues. And Obviously, Alzheimer's is something that gets a lot of press, it gets a lot of coverage. It's been, well documented, and we know that it's, there's a lot of organizations trying to come up with a cure and trying to help it, and we support those, and in a way that whatever we can do on that journey to help folks that are dealing with that today is something that I think that we're all committed to. Social isolation and loneliness is a little bit different. I mean, we've been focused on it for quite a while, but I never really heard it publicized in the news 3 or 4 years ago. And post-pandemic, if there's any silver lining in my mind about the pandemic, is that it has shown a huge spotlight on the incredible, difficult issue of social isolation and loneliness for our older adults. And about a quarter of community dwelling individuals 65 and over self-identify as socially isolated. More than 40% of people 65 and over experience loneliness on a regular basis. Recent studies report that loneliness is as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is a risk factor for dementia, heart attack, and stroke. It's said that over the next 30 years, for people over 65, loneliness and isolation will kill more people than heart attacks and cigarettes combined. And loneliness results in a 45% increased risk of mortality. Now you take all of those figures and then you realize that during the pandemic, one study indicated that feelings of isolation among people over 50 doubled during COVID. So just critically important. And again, I'm sorry if I bored you with those stats, because I'm sure you live it every day and understand it probably better than we do. But I think it leads to why we're so excited about the research that's been done. And I think it leads to, really important validation for folks like Sarah and others that we support when you've got, a dozen or so peer-reviewed published research journals, some focused on loneliness and isolation, some focused on dementia, some on delirium, post-acute, and other things. But all of them, sort of proving that we're having real impact in a real non-traditional way. In a lot of cases, we're eliminating the need for psychotropic medications. We're, agitation and other transitions for folks that, would sometimes need to be medicated are now given a cat or a pup and sort of go happily to the next phase. And so, it's not the same. We're certainly not a silver bullet. There's not one solution that works for every person. We believe in sort of person-centered care. And so, but for the folks that we have been fortunate enough to impact, I think, just talking a little bit about what those psychosocial benefits are, reduced feelings of depression, isolation, and loneliness, a sense of purpose, which I think, all of us know how important that is, mitigated dementia-related decline, associated behavioral issues, engaging experience that calms individuals, again, without the use of medication, improved cognitive activity and capability, which is, awesome. And, really important, not just to this group, but to all caregivers, is the reduced burden of care. And I think when we first launched the product, we got a ton of questions about, were we trying to replace human interaction with robots? And we thought about it exactly the opposite of that. Our goal was to enhance human interaction. And what we found is that there's a lot of difficult situations, there's a lot of difficult experiences, there's a lot of moments during the day where caregivers just need a second to do something. And what we found is that our products have actually enhanced the relationship between caregivers and their loved ones, caregivers and their, community members. And it's critically important that, we continue to focus not just on the older adult, but on those that are supporting them in every way in everyday life. So those are some of the things that the studies have proven out. And I think, again, as we've worked, into some of the new partnerships that we have with state units on aging and AAAs, and again, trying to get to those most in need, having this research has been, profoundly important in terms of moving the needle. I'm going to play another video here that I think really is great, high level about healthcare and different ways that we're interacting in community-based living.
This is another way to engage the residents with a bit of technology. And this companion cat is something that they can relate to one-on-one, and it just puts them at ease. There's a lot of anxiety that can happen on a daily level here, a daily basis here. And so anything that we can use to make these residents more relaxed in this environment, we're going to do that. The feedback that we've gotten from this companion cat has been incredible. Residents have been coming into the office asking where the cat is, if we've named the cat yet, if they can play with the cat. So it's been a great experience. We want vibrancy in the community. We want to see people laughing and having a good time. This is a cutting edge technology that we feel like this is going to be a very useful tool for us moving forward.
As an activity director, this was extremely exciting for me. As soon as the cats came into the room, you could just feel the energy change. Everybody wants to hold it, everybody wants to interact with it, like it's a real cat. It's amazing to see. And as an activity director, it's just touching. This is what we work for. I think this product really brings out people out of their shells. This would give them something to talk to someone else about. It's an incredible tool for people feeling more at home and belonging.
I see this pet as being my sidekick in my day-to-day job. I witnessed a woman with severe dementia hold that robotic cat in her hand, and it totally took her out of her repetitive loop. It was just incredible. It took her to a whole nother place in her head, which gave her a break. In my professional opinion, I think everybody needs one of those pets.
So this is a bit of an eye chart, but I think it's important, you know, as we've gone deeper into the healthcare space. Pre-pandemic, we didn't have one state partner, right? So we were looking for ways that, you know, as the world kind of closed off, how could we amplify our impact and help those most in need? We'd done a pilot in the state of New York, and we did 60 pets through 20 of their 13 or 20 of their districts, and with great, they took a year's worth of research, and the day sort of March 20th or March 15th of 2020, Greg Olson, the director, called me and said, "Hey, we're about to face the worst epidemic of loneliness and isolation we've ever had based on what's going on with COVID." And we started a program with the state of New York. A week later, we had the similar program with the state of Florida. Today, we're in over 25, 26 states with dozens and dozens of AAAs within those states. And those partnerships have become super meaningful during this time, as you know, retail became a little more challenging and those things. This was a way for us to partner with these states and get our products in the hands of those most in need. Last video here, which is just a little segment about those partnerships, and let's see if we have to play that.
This program started just a few months ago here in Metro Detroit, and well, Oliver here, come on buddy, is obviously a real dog. Experts are saying the benefits of the robotic pets are proving to be just as real.
My stuffed doggy. He does things.
Evelina Standifer received an Ageless Innovations Joy for All companion pet in November. Originally designed as a consumer product to inspire play, the pandemic revealed an even more powerful use.
Hello there.
A way to slow or reverse dementia disorders, which are proven to progress more rapidly in isolation.
Well, I was a little skeptical at first, but the feedback we've gotten has just been so positive. I mean, this has been a life-changing experience for some folks.
Dr. Thomas Jankowski is a research gerontologist at Wayne State University. He says social isolating to protect loved ones from COVID-19 has amplified another serious health risk.
Severe loneliness can affect your physical health as much as smoking or obesity does. The lonelier you are, the sicker you get.
And a study done in 2020 shows that 1/4 of those over 65 are considered socially isolated, and 50% of those are more likely to develop dementia, 30% are more likely to have heart disease or a stroke. But in the midst of a pandemic,
how do you help people when you can't have contact with them?
the Senior Alliance launched hotlines and Zoom programs, but it wasn't enough.
we were taking a look at all the resources that were available to older adults when it came to isolation during the pandemic.
Program manager Andrew Dabrowski acquired 30 companion robot pets back in the fall just to see.
Are they making the impact? And I would say, just based on anecdotal feedback at this point, it's been overwhelmingly positive.
What's he saying?
What? I'd flip if he told me he loved me.
The robotic dog is reactive to Evelyn's touch and her voice, moving its eyes, wagging its tails, and turning its head.
Does he keep you company?
Yeah, he keeps me company at night.
In about a dozen small studies done across the country, these companion pets have consistently reduced depression and anxiety, slowed cognitive decline, and increased cognitive capability. In one anecdotal case, a patient spoke for the first time in years to her doggie.
It's helping to prevent people from having to deal with worse physical problems, having to see their doctor more often, having to make a trip to the hospital.
I think it's a security, and the fact that he does move probably gives that sense of friendship and companionship when she's alone in her room.
They want to give away hundreds more of these robotic companion pets, so we've got links to resources on our website at wxyz.com. I'm Jennifer Ann Wilson, 7 Action News.
So thank you for bearing with me through those. I think those videos are quite telling about, and so much of it was in community living and the difficulty of reaching those older adults during that time. And this is one of my favorite slides because it shows what I like the most, which is smiles and people happy and feeling some sense of joy in their day and in their life. I'm super excited to now turn it over to the real world folk who do this work every day. Sarah has been a great friend and partner. She has both a personal and a professional view on this, which is so compelling, and so happy to have you, Sarah. And you just let me know when you want me to change slides, and I will let you do the rest.
All right, thank you, Ted. Thank you all for welcoming me into your workshop today. I'm very excited to be here. I also want to share something that today is my 60th birthday. And so, Charles, I want to thank you for saying that old people are cool. That's really helping me get through today. But I'm also really excited by the talented in this room, so that in the years to come, when I need someone to be there for me, that this incredible vault of talent will be there to make sure that my older years can be served well. So for those of you that are not familiar with myself or our community, obviously my name is Sarah Schroeder, and I serve as the Director of Wellness Initiatives at Eaton Senior Community in Lakewood, Colorado. We're a suburb of Denver. In this position, we serve 225 older adults in a low-income independent setting. So as you can see, that we're serving very low-income persons, and so money and pets are always a kind of a luxury for us. The average income, as I said, is $16,000, and with the cost of housing and needs in Denver increasing quickly, we're very concerned and always very proactive for our residents' well-being. So Eden is actually a faith-based organization, and in the 1980s, we were chosen as one of 8 sites in Colorado to test the model for assisted living. And as you can see, that obviously was very successful because there's many assisted livings throughout the country, and it's a very strong, successful model of care. My background, though, is that I'm a long-term care nurse. I've been a nurse for 40 years, and most of my years were spent working in skilled care facility in a very rural area of North Dakota. In that time, we did not have areas of memory care, so we're very creative in our approaches to helping older adults with dementia. I can actually tell you that in my first years as a nurse, they were actually creating the diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and look where we've come in these last 40 years since I started my career. But in our community, we're very unique, and we embrace all kinds of technology. We've become known as a site that individual groups that want to test out technology will reach out to us, and our residents love to be involved. At this time, we were working with social companion robots through a project with Denver University. And then we worked with other projects, including using Alexa for low vision persons, just to name a few. But one of my favorites, and always will be my favorite, is Joy for All Companions. And that's why I'm here today. Go ahead, Ted. So my first meeting with Joy for All was I was a speaker at a national leading age conference in Philadelphia in 2017. We were down there on a presentation about the social companion robots that lived in our community with our residents and other forms of social connectivity. And I stumbled upon on this huge expo floor, this booth with all these robotic cats and dogs. And while my passion is senior or older adults, my second passion in life is animal welfare. So I immediately had to stop. I'm that crazy cat person that everyone fears. I was the one in our community that always tried to get the bird aviary and the live animals to live in our setting, but was always turned away for lack of someone to responsibly care for them. So here I am down on the expo floor, and I meet Tom and Joyful, and I was just really excited by what their mission statement was and the uniqueness of this product. But I didn't envision at that time that I would be here today speaking to you or to any other of the groups in the last couple of years that I've reached out to share my knowledge of the companions. The story here really began with my mom. And so my mom had developed Alzheimer's. She was living independently on our farm, came to visit, had sustained a hip fracture, and within 6 months was living in memory care and very frail and very different mom than on what I knew. So her decline was rapid and I was struggling. And what I really missed, you guys, about my mom was I missed her smile. So my mom at that time, I would bring her new clothes and it just didn't, and she wasn't interested. She didn't recognize, my efforts. I would take her out to dinner with my family and she didn't enjoy them anymore. So this was something that I hoped that she could enjoy. Go ahead, Ted. So I wanted to share this quick photo. I spoke to you briefly that we were doing a project with social companion robots that in the future will probably be living in many of our homes. We just don't realize that yet. So Hojak was one of the software engineers that was there with us on the presentation. And I was really quite surprised when he came up and he asked me to take a picture of him with this cat. So I did. But there was more to this. The DreamFace technology team that created the robot, Ryan, was on the floor with me, and we're so excited to learn about the robotic pets and the technology and the purpose that they later asked me to bring our fleet of pets down to the university to be shared with members of the Knoebel Aging Institute to be promoted to older adults. They worked a lot with persons with Alzheimer's and some different research, as well as developing the robots. All right, we'll move forward. So when I returned from the conference, I was still kind of toying with the idea of buying my mom this pet. My mom was really a tough customer, and I didn't think that she would appreciate a toy, if you might. Remember, while I'm a clinical nurse, when it's your parents, I still became that child, and I still kind of looked at my mom's values. At this time in my life, I realized that my mom never liked bingo, but then it was also the first time I saw her getting her nails painted in all the years of her life. So I was learning my mom in a new way, but again, always being that child. So I had come back to work, and they had just put out the monthly journal on this journal on active aging, and inside there was a review by what's known as Leading Age Cast Division. And Cast Division had sponsored our session in Philadelphia on the social companion robot, but they really look at technology that support aging well. And lo and behold, here was an article, and Ted probably can relate to this, about the social companion Joy for All. And after reading that, I really realized that this was the right choice for me to make and go ahead and purchase for my mom. Ted. So here's my mom and myself. These were the last months of her life. As you can see, she was getting pretty frail. We were learning to take selfies, having a lot of fun. That was probably one of the last smiles that I saw on my mom. So I treasure this photo. But my parents were farmers, and growing up, we were always surrounded by animals. We had hundreds and hundreds of different cows and horses, and you name it, a typical farmer setting. After bringing my mom's cat over to her, I named the cat Ginger. What I came to learn was that Ginger brought my mom great joy. And as she began to talk less, it gave the staff something to talk to her about. And for that, I'm just eternally grateful. Once in a while, I could see a smile erupt with the pets when they would delight the staff or someone that happened to pop in her room, and they would start to meow or Goldie would start barking. I went on then to purchase for my mom one of the Golden Lab pups, and that's when the fun really began. So my mom would put the pets on her walker, and she would transgress around the memory care. And of course, the pets would acknowledge anybody within range. And so it was always kind of a fun day for me to visit. But my favorite was the day I allowed another resident in the memory care to take and hold her dog. We named him Goldie. And the memory care resident would not return the pup to me. She held on to it, and you could see she was just clearly enjoying it. So I waited a couple hours and came back, and still no effort on the part of myself or the staff could we get that dog back. So I explained to her that I had to take the dog outside to use the restroom. There was an open kind of a gardens area right there. And quickly Nellie handed the dog back to me. So we had a lot of fun with that. One of the more important memories I took from that time was that my mom's table mates in that facility, everybody sat at the same table each evening, and I would often join her for supper. And we had brought Goldie out to the table on the walker. And there was a gentleman that my mom sat with, and I'm embarrassed to say I never knew his name. He never talked. He would always just smile when I reached out to him. But when I would bring Goldie, I would see this gentleman cutting up food and attempting to feed Goldie, but always with this big smile. And then one night, just out of the blue, he spoke a few words of German, and it was just the most kind of one of those aha moments in your life when you realize that something that's so simple like this robotic pet could affect such change in someone who for 6 months I never saw speak a word. I know that my mom's time in the memory care, she had a team from hospice, and then of course, you know, the usual medical providers, and many of them spoke about the value of the pets, not only to my mom, but when she would bring them out, how it encouraged conversation and interaction with others. And she really enjoyed that attention. At that time in her life, she spoke almost very little. She did not enjoy the efforts of the activity staff. They were wonderful, but it just wasn't a place she was at that time. So most of her day was spent watching Westerns, which kind of brought her back to her life in Montana when she was a young woman. So Ted. But there was another step in between before we got over to see my mom with this pet. Before I took Ginger over to my mom, I wanted to introduce her to Miss Dorothy. In this photo, Dorothy had just celebrated her 100th birthday, and she was living in assisted living. And as one of her caregivers for many years, Dorothy always would relay stories to me about her daughter's cat. And this cat had many adventures, and you could see that the cat was very important to Dorothy. At one time, she helped to care for it. But in her younger years, Dorothy was also the one who always brought the strays home. And I had left her apartment, and I left Ginger in there, and I went out to do some work on the floor. And when I came back up to the door, I could hear her telling her daughter, "Don't you let them take my cat while I'm at bingo." And as you can guess, I did not get that cat back until her daughter could replace it. But from this experience, Dorothy taught me a lot. She would often tell me, you know, I can't wait for my grandchildren to come. I want to see if they can figure out it's not real. But more often she would say to me, it's the best kind. I don't have to take care of it. And so you can see that this really filled a void in her life. Sometime later, one of Dorothy's neighbors, some male resident, caught me in the hallway, and he came up and whispered to me and was pointing at the door of her room and saying, you know, that lady in there, she has a cat. And he just broke out in the biggest smile. So I went on to share that story with his son, who stopped to visit. And what I had learned from him was that this resident always had a dog, but because of his dementia, he could no longer care for it. And when I explained to him about the Joy for All companions, he was so excited that he went out and bought his dad a dog, and that dog brought great joy to his dad, whose life was pretty small because of his dementia. Okay. So when we're looking at from a nursing perspective, I appreciate that Ted talked a lot about where some people have questioned that by using robotic pets, are we replacing them live pets for that? I'm on the animal welfare world as well. I work a lot with some shelters. And this is the areas that I really feel like the robotic pets are valuable. We know that many older adults, by virtue of chronic health conditions or maybe dementia, cannot safely care for a live animal the way that they would want to. So why can't we give them something that they can care for and be successful at? That's really important to me. One of the very traumatic times in my career was when I was asked to help a family member remove 2 small dogs from a residence apartment. Because of her dementia, she had stopped taking them out to the bathroom, and they were not getting food and water on a regular basis. And the decision had to be made that the pets needed to move out of the apartment into a family home. This resident became suicidal. These pets were so important to her in her life, and it was something that she could still cling on to. And she ended up being hospitalized. When she came back, I gifted her Goldie, one of the Goldie products, and asked her to be the caretaker for my dog. And even though it wasn't the same as those live pets, it gave her purpose. She got lots of attention from others, and I really felt that I had given her something back for what I was a part of taking away. For persons like my mom who live in settings that do not allow for pets, my mom was living independently on our farm and had her cat Ginger and her golden retriever Melvin. And just by virtue of what had happened to her, she suddenly was not able to have these pets and had no control over their future. And so I felt that my small part, that I gave her something back and brought back some positive memories in her life, and also served others in that setting, whether it was staff or other residents, some joy in their life as well. We know that for those of you that follow the markets and housing markets, Denver is in a real housing crisis right now, but we're also seeing pet deposits just rise very quickly. I did a research last night, and in some facilities, they're $350 per pet, not to mention that they've tacked on now a rental fee for the pet each month. And that quickly becomes unaffordable for older persons that are on a fixed income. So this is a great way to give them some satisfaction, especially during COVID, when there was nothing. Our residents often talked about just having something stimulated interaction, even if it wasn't a live person, just to get through each day. And so I feel like this is another avenue where we can really promote the pets. During COVID, many of you already have lived this. We know that we had to shut our doors to vendors and volunteer groups, and that also included our pet partners. And so this was a way that we could replace some of the affection from the pets by having robotic pets where they were living in a commons area or individual apartments, that we could give some of that back to our residents. One of the presentations I actually did a few years ago was with one of the big animal shelters here in Denver. And we talked about pet safety and making pets of all kinds accessible to older adults, you know, no matter where we are in that walk of life. And this was really a valuable component. So because of this very positive interaction that I had from my own mom, I'm very grateful, Ted, to you and your team for what you've done. It gave me something to latch onto when my mom was leaving me in many ways. And then also because of the excitement of Miss Dorothy from her cat, I went on to purchase a cat, which we named Cookie. Cookie had actually been a live stray cat that our residents had cared for 14 years, and she just passed away. So we purchased Cookie and also a golden lab, which we named Goldie. We're real original in names, and went to put them into our community. I know that one of the questions that came up in the chat room was, what about independent settings? So let me share with you that it became very successful. But at that time, I was really kind of hesitant if I was making the right decision for our residents. My budget is very small. We're low income, and many things, including some of our salaries, are grant funded. And so purchasing this, was kind of a big deal for me. But I went ahead and I did it. And what we found out very quickly was that these pets became a wonderful addition to our wellness program. And I'm going to share some of the stories, including the one on Catalina. These stories were actually compiled the first couple months after we got the pets. And this was in 2017. So they've actually lived with me now for almost 5 years. And I'm very excited to have them today as much as I did that first day. In our community, the way that this was set up was that we would have the receptionist before COVID put them out in the morning, and then at night she would lock them back up to prevent theft. We were very curious to see how our independent residents, some are very high functioning, would find, if they would find appeal with the pets. And we realized that they were very popular, but then we also found that our residents started asking to take them home overnight for comfort or companionship. There was one day that I arrived at work on a holiday after holiday weekend and barely had entered the building, and I was immediately told that Cookie the cat had been stolen. And there was no ransom note. And so we were all kind of nervous about what had happened to Cookie and if we would see her again. And it turned out one of our residents was just really having a rough time and had just chosen to take Cookie back to her apartment and keep her. And we got her back later that week. So it really was validating what I had seen in my mom's setting, that we could reproduce that in independent living. So in this photo, this is Catalina. She's at this time 95 years old in her life. She would sit outside in the lobby and wait for her daughters that would come faithfully each day. But Catalina often came hours early before they did, and she immediately fell in love with Goldie. You can see the smile on her face. But then we also learned that later that Catalina was the one that was teaching the other residents how to interact with the pets and the special features that Ted referenced. So we were really excited by how this had played out for her. So I'm going to have you go. This is another one of my really favorite stories. This was Larry. Larry was very youthful. He had some developmental disabilities, and so he was just a very young man at heart. He would come down every morning from his apartment and spend about an hour playing with Goldie. And then on days, if she promised not to be too noisy, that she could spend the night. I always kind of felt that this was kind of for Larry, that time in his life when he was a young man with the dog, and that we helped him kind of reconnect to those moments in his life. So this is Maureen. Maureen and her husband also reside in our community. And I was really surprised that this email came out with this photo of Maureen and Goldie. And it was where Maureen was telling me, she goes, I just love that dog. So I was just so surprised that she was one that was interacting with the dog and how much enjoyment that she received from the pet. And I know that she's missed. We had to put the pets away. They did live in some of the apartments over the COVID, so they're not quite out in the common areas yet. But I know that she's one that she frequently expresses to me how much she misses sitting downstairs and playing with Goldie. So I have a special helper, and Dawn has had a long love of cats. She's also in the medical field and always, was surrounded by animals, mostly cats. She has birds now, but she really took responsibility for the animals and made sure that they were groomed. Each weekend, she would pick them up from the receptionist and take them home and wash and groom them and return them. There came a time in her life where she had a very serious health crisis that she's still battling today. And Cookie and Goldie actually moved into her apartment during COVID. We have a number of other pets on site as well, but they have lived with her to help support her during this time. And I know that her birthday was coming up here. I spoke to her about a week ago, and her daughter's actually going to get her one in her favorite color. So this was Cookie at his very first happy hour. The reason that I wanted you to see this slide was to show you that persons of all ages and all abilities enjoy the pets. You know, I went into this for selfish reasons. It was for my mom. I really wanted to do something for her in those last days of her life, and I was continually struggling. But when we moved, we brought the pets into Eaton, which I had not expected was that our independent residents of all ages would embrace them. And as I kind of gone through this journey with Joy for All and connected with many members on the outside, we found that it wasn't just about having dementia or socialization, that people 60, 70 on up love these animals and they bring great joy to them. I am the co-chair for the Council of Aging, so Ted, I was really pleased to see that the AAA was represented. I did a presentation for them, and I remember one of our attendees went home and bought his wife one right away for her birthday, and it was they had many stories to share. So I hope that as you guys are thinking about purchasing these for family, friends, or for an organization you might work for, realize that it's just not about people with dementia, that these serve people of all ages. And there's so many dynamics that can come into play with using these to promote better outcomes. Pandemic's not going away. Socialization will always be there for our seniors. One day I'm going to be that person, but this is just one small token of a way that we can help. So thank you, Ted.
Thanks so much, Sarah. That was awesome. Charles, we have time for, I know a couple questions in the Q&A. I can answer some quickly. Do you have a couple of minutes or?
Yeah, a couple of minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I saw a bunch of questions about the cleaning protocols and overall over COVID, do you recommend the sharing of the pets? So we do a couple things. So on our website, joyforall.com, we have a very specific cleaning protocol that has been tested and proven to disinfect the pets. During COVID, I mean, we don't mandate anything, but if you can be a one-to-one, model, certainly during this time, that was our recommendation, if possible. We know that that's not, we've tried to make these as affordable as possible. There's a lot of technology inside of those products for about $100 or so bucks. And so we know it's not always possible. So the cleaning protocol has been proven, tested through lab. It's there, joyforall.com. You can check it out there, and it does a great job. Where possible, we think a one-to-one model is the safest, especially during COVID. So I would say that. Let's see. What maintenance is required. So it takes, both the cat and the dog take 4C batteries. They have a significant battery life, months typically, and the engineers that helped us design this, the great thing they put in there is a sleep mode. So if you're not interacting with them, they kind of go into this sleep mode, which has almost zero trickle on the battery. And then if you can, sort of just give them a pet, or sometimes turn the lights on or off, and they'll wake back up. So it's pretty easy, and typically that's it's a screwdriver underneath a Velcro flap under the belly, and 4 batteries in, 4 batteries out. So I think a lot of these questions are about disinfecting and between residents. So I'd highly recommend that folks go to the website and see the actual protocol, just because it's, I don't want to get it wrong and mislead anybody. So it's there. I don't know if there's any other questions that I missed.
I have to tell you, last night I was mentioning to one of our residents as I was leaving work that I was doing this presentation, and I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize she actually enjoyed the pets. And she said, they're so much fun because you can put them on demand. If I want to interact with them, I can, but when I didn't, I just shut them off. And so, it was kind of a neat perspective that those of us with live pets do not get to enjoy.
We also, in both the cat and the dog, there's three modes. There's completely off, so you can just use it as sort of an inanimate without the interaction. There's a mute mode, which has all of the movements without the sounds, because we thought of audio sensitivity. There's certainly those cases. And there's also, folks who are in care settings who might prefer to not have them meowing and barking all the time. And then we have fully on mode where you can get all both the movements and the sounds. There was another question about UV sanitizing. We have a UV box here and a UV wand, and we've done that, and that works as well. Not everybody has that, so that's where we have the cleaning protocol.
Thank you so much, Ted. Thank you so much, Sarah. Would you mind just sharing your screen 2 seconds, Ted, if you don't mind?
No, you bet.
Yeah. No, actually, before we finish here, just so you know, Sarah, I feel very grateful that you are with us today. You probably don't know this about me, but my favorite song is actually Happy Birthday. So I'm just going to sing you Happy Birthday just the beginning because I love it, and I'm thankful you're here with us today. Happy birthday to you, Sarah. And that's it. I'm not going to
thank you, Charles.
too much. But thank you so much for being with us. Ted, Sarah, amazing presentation. I'm going to quickly share your emails on the screen today so you can see and how we can be in touch with both Sarah and Ted. Thank you for being with us. Please stay around for the happy hour. Just take off your video if you don't mind. We're going to have Brian and Dawn from NCAP to join us in our winter gathering, activities from winter gathering happy hour. Brian, Dawn, do you want to jump on?
Thank you so much.
Thanks.